The evening was unusually quiet. The late summer air hung heavy with warmth, though the sun had already dipped behind the rooftops. Sergei Andreevich, a man in his early 50s, sat in his black car at the gate of his estate. He had left the office 2 hours earlier than planned. It had been a tiring day, meetings, contracts, endless phone calls. Yet, by chance, one important meeting was cancelled, leaving him with a pocket of free time. For most people, 2 hours might not mean much. But for Sergei, whose life had been measured in schedules and business calendars, it felt almost like a stolen treasure. He turned off the engine and let the silence wrap around him. The tall iron gates in front of him guarded not just a house but a world he had built with his own hands, or rather, with the force of his will, his work, and his ambition. The mansion behind those gates was a symbol of everything he had achieved: wealth, power, independence. And yet, as Sergei sat there, he felt a strange hesitation. Coming home early was a rare event. He wondered, almost nervously, what he would find inside. A house that felt like a museum. When Sergei finally stepped out of the car and walked up the wide stone path, he noticed how still everything seemed. The garden, trimmed by professional landscapers, was immaculate. Not a leaf out of place. The fountain in the center gurgled softly, water sparkling under the dim light of the lanterns. It was beautiful, of course. But Sergei realized, as he often did in quiet moments, that the beauty was cold. Everything was perfect but lifeless, as if the house were a museum where no one really lived. He entered through the massive wooden doors, and the familiar smell of polished marble and expensive perfumes greeted him. The housekeeper usually made sure everything smelled of order, not of people. The marble floor shone like water. The high ceiling swallowed the sound of his footsteps. Paintings of famous artists lined the walls, each worth more than an ordinary family home. But to Sergei, they were just colors on canvas. He had bought them not because he loved art but because people like him were expected to own such things. He loosened his tie and exhaled slowly. He had imagined returning home early as a relief, but instead, he felt a wave of emptiness. The echo of loneliness. Sergei was a millionaire. His companies stretched across industries, construction, transport, technology. People admired him, envied him, even feared him. He lived in abundance. Yet abundance has its shadows. His wife, Elena, once close and full of laughter, had drifted into her own world. They rarely spoke about anything other than practical matters: dinners, events, charity foundations. Their son, Anton, was grown now, studying abroad. The house, built for family and warmth, stood mostly silent. Sergei knew all this, of course, but he rarely allowed himself to feel it. Work kept him safe from such thoughts. Business was predictable. Profit and loss made sense. People, emotions, those were harder to manage. And yet, tonight, as he walked further into the empty halls, something began to stir in him. The house seemed different. Or perhaps it was simply his early arrival, catching it in an unguarded moment. A sound upstairs. As he passed the living room, Sergei froze. A faint sound drifted from the second floor. It wasn't the creak of the house or the hum of appliances. It was softer, almost like music. He tilted his head and listened. Yes, it was music, gentle, hesitant notes of a piano. Sergei frowned. They owned a grand piano, an old glossy instrument that stood more as decoration than anything else. None of them played it, not anymore. Elena had taken lessons in her youth, but she had long abandoned the habit. Anton had tried as a child but never continued. So who was playing now? Curiosity stirred inside him. Without thinking, Sergei climbed the stairs. Each step echoed in the vast space. The music grew clearer, fragile, unsteady, but filled with emotion, as if someone was pouring their heart into the keys. He reached the door of the music room, the same room where the piano had gathered dust for years. Slowly, he pushed it open. The unbelievable sight. The sight before him stopped Sergei in his tracks. There, in the dim glow of the lamp, sat Elena. His wife. Her hair, once perfectly styled for dinners and parties, fell loosely over her shoulders. She wore a simple dress, not the elegant gowns she usually chose. Her hands moved carefully over the keys, searching for the melody of an old song. And she was crying. Tears slid down her cheeks as she played, her shoulders trembling. The music broke now and then when her hands faltered, but she continued, as if the piano were her only way to speak. Sergei's throat tightened. He had not seen her cry in years. To him, Elena was always composed, graceful, untouchable. But here she was, alone in the house, releasing all the pain she had kept hidden. He couldn't believe his eyes. A marriage of silence. For a long moment, Sergei remained at the door, watching. His mind raced. Why was she crying? What sorrow was she carrying? Memories came back, how they had once dreamed together of a simple life, how they had laughed when they were young and poor, how Elena had supported him through long nights of work, raising Anton when Sergei was too busy chasing success. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. Money had built walls around them. His ambition had filled every hour, every corner of their life. Elena had become a figure at his side, not a partner of his soul. And he had hardly noticed. The realization struck him with painful clarity: the woman he loved was lonely, even while living in luxury. The gentle step forward. Sergei finally moved. He walked slowly into the room. The wooden floor creaked, and Elena lifted her head. Startled, she quickly wiped her tears, her hands trembling above the keys. "You're home early," she whispered, her voice fragile. Sergei opened his mouth but no words came. He simply crossed the room and sat beside her on the bench. For the first time in years, they sat close enough to feel each other's presence. Elena looked down, embarrassed. "I didn't know anyone was listening." "The music is beautiful," Sergei said softly. His voice cracked, surprising even himself. "And so are you." For a long pause, silence filled the room. Only the faint hum of the night outside accompanied them. A conversation long overdue. Finally, Elena spoke. Her words came slowly, like water breaking through a dam. She confessed how empty the house felt when he was always away, how she missed the days when they were simply together without schedules and obligations. She admitted she felt invisible, reduced to a shadow behind his name and wealth. Sergei listened, really listened. Each word pierced him, because he knew it was true. He had built a life of success, but somewhere along the way, he had left her behind. Tears welled in his eyes, rare, heavy tears that he could not stop. A man who had conquered industries, who had stood unshaken in front of rivals and crises, now sat trembling beside his wife. "I thought I was giving you everything," he whispered. "The house, the comfort, the security, but I see now I gave you nothing that truly mattered." Elena turned to him, her eyes red but gentle. "It's not too late, Sergei. I don't want riches. I only want you. A new beginning." In that quiet room, something shifted. The millionaire and his wife, who had drifted apart in silence, found themselves once again facing the truth of their hearts. They sat together, hands touching lightly, as Elena played a few softer notes. This time, Sergei joined her, pressing random keys clumsily, making her smile through her tears. For the first time in years, the piano was not a decoration. It was a voice, a fragile, honest voice that spoke of pain but also of hope. The night stretched on, and they stayed there, talking, remembering, forgiving. The mansion no longer felt like a museum. It felt, at last, like a home. Epilogue. The millionaire's tears. Later, as Sergei lay in bed beside Elena, he thought about the sight that had shaken him so deeply. He had come home early, expecting only silence and order. Instead, he had seen his wife's hidden sorrow, and in her tears, he had discovered his own. Success, he realized, was not measured by wealth or trophies of power. True success was measured in love, in presence, in the warmth of being truly together. And as he drifted to sleep, Sergei felt something he had not felt in years: peace.